Okay, and we're good to go. So can everyone see my screen? I shared it with you. You should see a PowerPoint slide that says MTCC VISTA site requirements, August 2019 to 2020. Looks great. Perfect. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Callie Foster, and I am the VISTA Program Manager here at Montana Campus Compact. So I know a lot of you have been dealing with Claire Foley. She is our lead on recruitment, and you've heard a little bit from me here and there. But from here on out, I will be the person that you will want to direct the majority of your questions to. Claire is our program specialist, so she does a lot of support with members. So your members will be hearing from her as well as myself. And I don't know if y'all are familiar with, we have a VISTA leader here in our office. Their name is Paxton, and he is brand new, but he was VISTA with us this past year in Helena. So his main priority is offering our VISTA support. So your VISTAs will have a lot of support from our office throughout this next coming year, but this webinar will focus mainly on how you can support VISTAs and what our requirements are of you. So let's get started. Okay, so like I said, my name is Callie Foster. I'm the program manager, and then we have Paxton McCausland, who is the VISTA leader. And here you can see that we have VISTAs in communities all throughout Montana. So Missoula is our highest concentration of VISTAs because that's where our office is. So we tend to have a better understanding of the need here in Missoula, but we try to put VISTAs throughout Montana wherever they are needed. So you can see here, Helena, Dillon, Kalispell, Bozeman, Hot Springs, and Great Falls is where we have our VISTAs this year. Moving on, Montana Campus Compact. So for those of you that don't know exactly who we are and what we do, we're a statewide coalition of colleges and university presidents who are committed to addressing community needs through the resources of higher education. So we really try to focus on, civic responsibility and civic engagement with students, and also hosting our AmeriCorps members to focus on service and serving the community needs throughout Montana. As far as VISTA goes, our members are placed in community organizations, public agencies, or college campuses to create and expand programs that build capacity and ultimately bring low-income individuals and communities out of poverty. So I'm sure all of you know that based off of your application and the conversations that our staff have had with you, and what our main focus is by having a VISTA at your organization is to ultimately alleviate poverty while also building capacity of your organization. So I like to provide this graphic to host sites just so you can understand a bit more about our funding stream as well as kind of our chain of communication. So I have circled this bit of the chart, but I will start from the top. So the Corporation for National Community Service is the government agency where we receive our funding through, and they are, I believe, controlled by Congress. And so they funnel funding into, here with the S is Senior Corps, so those are service members over the age of 55 that serve in AmeriCorps. And then there's AmeriCorps, and then there's the Social Innovation Fund. And AmeriCorps is a pretty large branch under the the Corporation for National Community Service. And once you get into the nitty-gritty of AmeriCorps, you can see that there's three main programs. There's NCCC, which is a program for young adults between the ages of 18 and I think 26. There's VISTA, where there's no age limit, and then there's state and national grants. So VISTA, like on the last slide, I mentioned focuses on capacity building in organizations. You get over into state and national grants, they focus on the direct service of AmeriCorps, so serving directly with beneficiaries of programs. whereas VISTA is more behind the scenes capacity building. So within VISTA, it goes down into a state office structure. I do want to point out that this will be changing this fall, but as of right now, we are in a state office structure. They are moving to regional offices. So that will happen in November or December of this year, and I will give out more information based on that transition as I find out more information. But moving into this red circle, I don't know how clear the words are to you, but this green box says intermediary, which is exactly what Montana Campus Compact is we receive funding through the corporation and VISTA and from our state office to host AmeriCorps and AmeriCorps VISTA. So this is us at the top, and then it gets into VISTA sub-sites, and that's you. So you are considered a VISTA sub-site, or what we like to call in our office a host site organization. And then it gets down into the supervisor, which is you, and then VISTA members. And we show our VISTA members a similar chart, but we try to make it more linear so they understand that as much as a hierarchy as this is, they are in the same playing field as everyone else. They have just as much stake in the game and these projects as everyone involved. So you can see that that is where the funding goes through, but if you look at it from the bottom moving up, your members should be working with you day to day on any sort of issues that come up. And then if you cannot handle those issues or you need more information, then you would move up into maybe higher ups in your organization to figure out some problem solving. And if that doesn't work out, then you'd move up to the intermediary that we would get involved, and then to our state office, and then up to the corporation. So we also say the same things to your VISTA, that if they have issues, to of course go to you first because they're there with you day to day, then move up to us as an intermediary, and then if we see it necessary, then we get the state office and ultimately the corporation involved. So try to, excuse me, oops. Try to understand that we want things to be communicated and dealt with on the site level, and then move their way up before we get the corporation involved. We've seen that a lot of issues that arise or challenges can easily be mitigated by the staff in our office problem solving with host sites. And I also wanted to say, if any of you have questions, feel free to put it in the chat box or just unmute yourself and interrupt me. I am more than happy to discuss any of the slides before moving forward to the next one. Perfect. So MTCC VISTA overview. Like I mentioned before, our goal is to help alleviate poverty. That is the main goal of VISTA. Members serve full-time, so on a 24-hour basis. This is not just a 9-to-5 job. They are representing AmeriCorps at all times, and we want them to understand that. Although within that 24-hour full-time service, you cannot work your VISTA 24/7. We want you to stay within the parameters of 35 to 40 hours per week of service that your VISTA does, because we want you also to understand that your VISTA makes a stipend. They don't work hourly, so if you're working them 40 plus hours a week, they're still going to make the same amount of money no matter what, which, as you know, or you should know, your members are receive a living stipend, and they are put on the poverty line. So they are not making much money if you were to boil it down per hour. So although they are representing you and AmeriCorps and MTCC 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we do ask that you stay within the parameters of between 35 and 40 hours a week. Host sites provide day-to-day supervision. They provide supplies, equipment, and training. And a VISTA project must build capacity and focus on indirect service. Your VISTA member should not be serving directly with beneficiaries of your program. And all of our VISTA host sites and projects, they align with our program priorities, which is education and veterans. And more specifically, it gets into within education, it's like college access and success, K through 12 success, and so on. And with this service term that your VISTA is serving within, it's going to start on August 19th, which is this coming Monday, through August 17th, 2020. And those dates do not align as a full 365 days, and that is because the service term is during a leap year. And as all of you should know, the cost share of having a VISTA for affiliates of Montana Campus Compact is $6,250, and then non-affiliates is $8,350 per member.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So, you said that the VISTA should not be doing direct service, which I totally get, but if the VISTA is going to be doing grant writing for us, I do feel like having a good sense of our programming would be helpful. So is it okay if she does come in and experiences some of our programs?
Yes, absolutely. If it's a training need for them to understand their assignment and their service better, absolutely. But as long as that is just taking place in more of a training capacity than an actual service capacity, then that is totally okay.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone else have any other questions of the material that I've covered so far? Okay. Moving on. So campus and community partnerships, we are really trying to put a focus on this year, but your campus or community partner, you identified in your application for a VISTA. So it was a requirement and it's something you signed off on, the MOU. So we want to take this really seriously, and we want your VISTA and your project to form a really great partnership with either the campus that you are partnering with or a local organization. So it's vital to the mission of Montana Campus Compact. And the biggest takeaways from these campus and community partnerships are to improve community life and educate students for civic and social responsibility, address community needs utilizing the resources of higher education, and to offer campuses, schools, and organizations the opportunity to build sustainable infrastructure to alleviate poverty by leveraging resources like student volunteers and faculty research. So that last bullet is really important, because with a lot of the programs that we partner with and we place VISTAs with, they need volunteers. And by tapping into a campus or a community partnership, you can easily, well, I like to say easily, but sometimes it's a little bit more of a challenge, but you can really tap into student volunteers to get them to join your organization and help out with the program or the project that your VISTA is developing. So we will be checking in on this, and we will be holding host sites more accountable moving forward about these partnerships. So please don't forget about them. Please invite them to your meetings. If we come and visit for a host site, a host site visit, please invite them to the table. Make sure that they feel and are involved in your project. And I've included a few tips throughout this webinar, but for the campus community partnership one tip is to communicate who your campus or community partner is within the first week of VISTA service. So we have seen in the past that we expect that host site supervisors are communicating who their partners are, but 6 months into the service year, we find out that VISTA has no idea who their community or campus partner is. So please communicate who this person is, who the contact is, or what department you have identified, or what organization you have identified as the partner. And please try to facilitate those introductions of your VISTA to that partner, so they can form that relationship really early on in their service term. So hopefully they can be successful in fostering a really great partnership. Okay, so we're getting into the VISTA assignment description now. There's a lot of acronyms within the AmeriCorps VISTA world. So we call it a VAD. And if your member refers to something as their VAD, it is the VISTA assignment description. And within your application, you identified objectives and member activities and goals within certain time frames throughout their service term. And we took those objectives and activities and turned them into the VISTA assignment description. And it's really important that your member follows this VAD, because it is what we would like to say is their position description. It's how they identify what needs to be done and at what time in their service year. So it's really important that you go over this with them. So like I said, it is their position description for each VISTA. It describes their role, including the overarching goal, and it also outlines specific objectives and activities. And then it also includes the specific Corporation for National Community Service performance measures that your VISTA will report on. So it's really important that you go over this with them within their first week of service, so you also understand what the performance measure is that you are measuring throughout the service term, because your VISTA will have to report on that to us every month of how they're gathering these performance measures and what qualitative and quantitative data they have gathered. And then to fulfill our grant requirements, we then have to take that data and report it to the Corporation for National and Community Service. So please focus on these performance measures, and if you ever have any questions about them, please let us know and we can dive deep into what it means and how we might need to tweak a few things of how you're collecting these performance measures, or if you and your VISTA fully understands the depth of them. Also, I have included a sample VAD here. It's not going to look exactly like this, but it definitely follows the same sort of structure of the title of your project, your sponsoring organization, project name, project number, project period, site name, your focus area, and any sort of notes. Excuse me. It gets into the project goal. So this goal was something that you identified on your application, and we just kind of narrowed it down to what exactly the overarching goal is. And then you get into things like objectives and then member activities. And so we want these objectives to be really clear of, you know, they are by, okay, Hillary says, do you provide us with the VAD or do we need to create it? Hillary, this VAD has been created already within the My AmeriCorps system, which your member has a lot of access to. We also will provide it to you in an email, and we will be providing it to your VISTA on their first day of service. Okay, so you can see down in objectives and member activities, we want these to be done by a certain date, and then the member activities gets into exactly how the member will fulfill the objective. And some of these VADs are just 1 pages, some of them are 3 pages. It really depends on what exactly the project entails and at what point in the project they are, whether beginning, middle, or towards the end. I put in 2 tips for the VADs. VISTAs are most successful when their supervisors understand and follow the VAD. We often see that supervisors will ask their VISTAs to work on projects that are outside of their VAD, and we have to make sure that the VISTA is following that VAD, because it is a contract that the VISTA has taken with AmeriCorps as well as you as supervisors. You've signed off on your application and your MOU, so you have signed a contract saying that this VISTA member is only going to work on this VAD. We understand that there are certain things that happen and you need help within your organization, and it's fine that your VISTA focuses on some of those things occasionally, but this is the document that they really need to be focusing on. Also, tip number 2, if the VAD needs revising due to project changes, because we understand that circumstances arise, some things don't work out, or there's new factors that we need to take into account, please contact us, because we have the availability to revise this VAD with you. And then before the, after the revision happens, I have to get that VAD approved by VISTA before your VISTA can actually start working on the revised VAD. So please, if anything needs to change within that VAD, contact us and we can set up a meeting on how to revise it. Once that revision happens, we will then submit it to VISTA, they will approve it, and then your VISTA can start working on the new revision of their VAD. Does anyone have any questions about VADs? Okay. Perfect. Okay, so getting into the great world of compliance. So your VISTA is responsible for complying with our requirements, as well as you are responsible for complying with our requirements. So as far as your VISTA goes, your VISTA must submit monthly reporting, and that gets into the performance measures. So this is through a Google form, and there's a series of questions that we ask them related to their performance measures. So they'll submit that every month, and we will receive it and we'll go through it to see if they are on track. They also have to submit monthly work plans to Paxton, our VISTA leader. And then there's also VISTA activity logs. And activity logs are just another word for timesheets, but they do not have to submit them to us. It is required that you review the activity logs with your VISTA and sign off on them, but you do not have to submit them to us. It is a requirement that you keep these activity logs on site for 7 years after your VISTA serves with you for auditing reasons. So please keep that in mind, that even though your VISTA is only there for a year, you need to keep it either in a paper form or an electronic form for 7 years. In terms of the host site supervisor, like I said, you'll need to sign the activity logs monthly. It does come in an 8.5 by 11 sheet with grids, and they'll fill it out in every month. You'll need to sign off on it and then save it. We would really like for you to review monthly reports and work plans with your VISTAs before they submit them to us, just so you have a good understanding of exactly what their goals are and what they're working on. And then also with the monthly reports, with the performance measures, we want to make sure that if you're tracking information within your organization, that exact information is being reported to us, so we can all make sure that we are hitting those performance measure marks. Also, with personal and medical days, it is sent to you on through a Google form monthly from our office, and you'll need to submit your VISTA's personal and medical days for those months. And it is your responsibility to track those days and hold your VISTA accountable for them, and then also make sure that you are submitting the correct days to us. And then there is an end of term impact report, which is just a 1 to 2 page report that we like to see from VISTAs, kind of going over their entire year of service and what they accomplished, any sort of challenges they had, and then also reporting on their performance measures. And then there is biannual Montana Campus Compact staff site visits. So they usually take place in the fall and in the spring. This should say spring of 2020, not spring of 2019, because that has already passed. So I'd say for those visitors starting in August, I will most likely start planning my host site visits to come and see you in person. Most likely in the end of September or October. And since most of you are here in Missoula, it will be pretty simple. It'll just be a few hours that we spend with you, and we will just need to schedule a good time for me to come on over. For anyone that is outside of Missoula, I will plan travel days and come and see you that way. Does anyone have any questions about this slide? No? Okay. So monthly work plans. Like I said, VISTAs create monthly work plans, and they outline their goals for the month. And I'm sure most of you are aware of SMART goals. So we want them to be specific, measurable, obtainable, relevant, and timely. And we ask you to review these work plans with your VISTAs just to make sure that your expectations are also their expectations, and that you're working towards some common goals and you understand what is on their plate. Also, your VISTA will submit this to our VISTA leader, which is Paxton, and during our orientation, we will go over how they should submit them. We also have a monthly calendar of when they need to submit them, and I will share that monthly calendar with you as well, so you can make sure that you and your VISTA are following the same deadlines. Okay, so here is an example of the daily activity logs. It looks like this exactly, so it'll just be your business name, month and year. I do understand that these boxes are pretty small, so I'm not looking for something that is super in-depth, maybe just some bullet points of the main things that they've worked on for that day. And you can't see it here on the slide, but at the very bottom of this page, it'll say, supervisor signature and date. So it'll go through first week through the fourth week of every month, and they log hours, activities, personal and medical leave. You, as their supervisor, has to sign off each month, and then, like I said, it stays on site for 7 years for auditing purposes. Okay, getting into personal and medical leave. So each VISTA, per 365 days of service, receive 10 personal days and 10 medical days. There is the option for 1 week of emergency leave for death or critical illness in an immediate family. And CNCS, so the corporation, will pay for round-trip transportation. And I need to specify that this is just domestic transportation. If your VISTA needs to leave the country for emergency leave, CNCS will pay for them to get to the closest airport to the border. I was not aware of this until this year when it happened with one of our previous VISTAs. National holidays. Holidays observed by your VISTA are only those observed by the host site. So here at the University of Montana, we have Paxton, who is also a VISTA, and he observes the holidays that we as an office and the university observes. So if your holiday schedule looks different than the University of Montana's, we ask that you communicate that with your member and let them know that if you're taking off a certain holiday and no one else is going to be in your office, please communicate with them that they should also not come into the office that day. For those of you that are on a university campus or a college campus, we've had a lot of questions from VISTAs about, well, what do I do when students go on winter break? Well, we cannot allow a VISTA to take off that much time within their service term. So if the students take off, a week and a half or 2 weeks for winter break, your VISTA cannot take off that amount of time. So please communicate that with them as well. We have told them, or we will tell them the same information, but please let them know that the holidays that you observe as an office is the holidays they observe. Also, it is your responsibility to ensure that your VISTA follows these guidelines. So please, like I said before, track their personal and medical days. If you want to do it by hours, you can. So 10 personal days is going to be 80 hours in total. So if they take a half day, then that's only 0.5 of a personal day. Or if they only take a couple hours, that's 0.25. So it's up to you to track it and to just let us know. And then when they come back and ask if we want to compare the information that you have to what we have, we want to make sure that it lines up so there's no challenges or issues there. Does anyone have any questions on personal and medical days? Okay. So this is the Google form to be completed each month by a supervisor. You will be prompted every month through email to fill it out. So you'll just follow the link to the Google form, enter the information for the month, your VISTA's name, your name, and how many days they took off, and on what dates. So it's pretty straightforward, but please reach out to me if you have any questions, or if you enter them incorrectly and I need to fix it. It is populated just into a spreadsheet and I can edit it, so please let me know. And then outside employment and education. So your VISTA is allowed to have outside employment and to take educational courses. So with outside employment, it needs to be pre-approved by host site, Montana Campus Compact, and our state office. So there is a form that your VISTA is going to be provided that they need to fill off, have signed by you, have signed by me, and then I will submit it to the state office for approval. And the second bullet, excuse me. The second bullet says it cannot interfere with designated service duties as determined by the supervisor. So your VISTA couldn't get an outside job and then only work part-time for you and then part-time for this other job. It needs to either be a nighttime sort of thing or a weekend job, or say if they come in at 7 and leave at 3 and then they want to go and work another job from 3:30 till whenever, that is totally fine. Another thing that I must say about outside employment is that they cannot receive another income, separate income from the same organization. So you could not employ your VISTA outside of their VAD in their project to do something else for your organization, because more than 100% of their income cannot come from the same employer. So we've had some issues with VISTAs wanting to get a part-time job here at the University of Montana, and because they are one of our VISTAs, they cannot actually do that. So there is some issues there, but please, if you want to discuss any of this with your VISTA and us, we can definitely work through it. In terms of educational courses, full-time enrollment is prohibited, but part-time enrollment is allowed. It must be approved by the host site. Again, Montana Campus Compact and the state office. And courses cannot interfere with designated service duties as determined by the supervisor. So if your VISTA is taking a couple classes, please work out that schedule so they are still serving between 35 and 40 hours a week, but it is your discretion on how you want to work out that schedule. But if they are taking courses, they need to communicate it with you, with us, and then we'll send it to our state office for approval. So Morgan says the Zoom is in and out, might be to weather. Yeah, I have heard some lightning or our lights have flickered. So please let me know if something happens and you can't hear or see me. Okay, getting into prohibited activities. Prohibited activities that your VISTA is not allowed to engage in while they are in service would be political engagement, religious activities, union organizing, providing abortion services or referrals, alcohol consumption, or engaging in safety risks. And safety risk just means participating in activities that pose a significant safety risk to clients or to self. And so this means that when they are in service or they are representing AmeriCorps, your host site, or Montana Campus Compact, they cannot engage in any of these activities. And a good tip of what we like to say as a quote is on their own time, in their own clothing, and on their own device. So if you have a VISTA that engages in political engagement or religious activity, they need to do it on their own time. They cannot do it on your device within your office or even in any sort of AmeriCorps clothing. It needs to be on their own time. So if you see that your VISTA is engaging in religious or political activities or any of these things while they are at your host site, first talk to them and let them know that it is a prohibited activity, and then let us know so we can have a conversation with them to let them know that this is a big no-no. But like I said, if they want to engage in any of these activities, they need to do it on their own time, in their own clothing, and on their own device. Okay, so helping your VISTA member. So what can supervisors do to support members? So these are just a little bit of tips, but if you want to go above and beyond, please feel free to do so. But assisting in locating housing is a big thing. As some of you know, in certain areas of Montana, there's a housing shortage. And because your VISTA is put on the poverty line in terms of their living stipend, it's really hard for them to come into a brand new state, a brand new town, and find housing. So if your VISTA has reached out to you for resources of housing, please take them seriously and help them, because the areas in which they are serving, in which you are in, you are probably way more kind of into the network of that community than we are if you are outside of Missoula. Food and gifts. If you want to take them grocery shopping or give them any sort of gift, please feel free to do that, but it can't be in the form of cash. Also clothing. If you have apparel that has your agency's logo on it, and you can hand that out to your VISTA, please feel free to do that, because they probably feel more welcomed and more connected to the organization. Any sort of promotional items that you have, well, and also providing recognition. I know that a lot of organizations that partner with AmeriCorps, you know, they don't have that much, you know, that many resources in the form of cash to then buy them food or gifts or clothing or promotional items. But it is a really big deal when you provide recognition to your VISTA. If you have any sort of newsletter that goes out, or if you just want to provide them recognition at a meeting of some sort, something, please feel free to do that, because VISTA service is challenging for a lot of people, and they're in a brand new place, a brand new organization, and they're not making much money, so recognition can go a really long way. Okay, so getting into VISTA trainings and mandatory events. So your VISTA member will will have to participate in a state and Montana Campus Compact pre-service orientation, and that will take place on September 3rd through the 5th, which is the in-person one. And then on their first day of service, they're going to do 2 webinars with me. I probably should have put that on there, but I have emailed them about it, and I can definitely send something out to supervisors that haven't received that information. There's also something called an on-site orientation and training. We call it an OSAT. And that is with their host site. So that's with you. And I will email that out after this presentation or this webinar. And it goes over their first 3 weeks of service and what our expectations are. And it's more of just a resource to help them get oriented into the project, into the host site, and into the community. Your VISTA is also required to participate in 2 national days of service. So the first one will be September 11th. And the second one will be Martin Luther King Jr. Day in January, so September and January. Also, your VISTA needs to participate in monthly solidarity calls, and those are the 3rd Thursday of every month, and that is where we get all of our VISTAs together, either in person for those VISTAs that are here in Missoula, and the rest we do it over Zoom, so the same format that we're on right now. And they go over topics such as challenges that they have in their service, any sort of resources that they want to share with each other. Occasionally we'll bring in a representative of an organization or an expert on a certain topic, and they will present to the VISTAs about those sorts of things. Another one is a fall training, which will take place in October. We are still nailing down the dates of that at a location, but that will be a 3-day training that your VISTAs are required to attend. And then there's also a close of service training or retreat, as we call it, that will be in July of next year. Under this graphic, you can see that all of these events will be listed on the VISTA program calendar, and I will provide that calendar to you as well as your VISTA. So please refer to that calendar throughout the year. When you first get it, it may look pretty long, but actually if you break it down into the 12 months that your VISTA will be here with you, it's only a handful of requirements every month. Perfect. So getting into the on-site orientation and training, also called OSAT, it's the orientation plan for VISTA's first 3 weeks in the office with you. The purpose is to establish an effective working relationship between a VISTA and the supervisor, the site staff, and the community. So week 1, the overarching goal is to get to know your organization and your community. Week 2 is getting to know your community, your project, and their campus or community partner. And then 3 weeks, the journey begins, so work plan development. And like I said, it will be sent to you after this webinar for you to look through. Feel free to kind of change or add anything that you see more relevant to your organization, but please also follow this and take this first 3-week orientation seriously. We've seen that it definitely helps VISTAs if their supervisor really puts in the time and effort to follow this OSAT. Okay, so site supervisor influence. Our strongest sites have supervisors who take responsibility for the VISTA project, communicate regularly, and take time to meet, invest in the VISTA's professional development, mentor the VISTA, and appreciate the purpose of VISTA. So some of you might know, if you've had a VISTA previously, you know that some of these people are just right out of college. They're green to the workforce. There is a lot of professional development that they need to go through. So it is important to remember that and know that these VISTAs might need a little bit of guidance as to what, you know, professional work really looks like, or they might just need a little bit of patience and appreciation, because most of these people have picked up their entire lives to move to Montana to serve with your organization. So it's really important to make them feel appreciated and to communicate regularly with them. A tip that I have for you is to set aside 30 minutes to an hour a week for a VISTA supervisor check-in. When VISTAs leave service early, their biggest reason for leaving early is that their supervisor did not give them enough attention. And we have seen that they say, VISTAs that leave early, they say if their supervisor had just given them 30 minutes to an hour per week of their undivided attention to really dive into what's going on, that they probably would have stayed. So there is proof in the pudding, as I like to say, that we see success with VISTAs when their supervisor makes time for them. We understand that, you know, you have staff meetings probably weekly or bi-weekly, but if you take the time to just give your VISTA 30 minutes of your undivided attention per week to give them the space to talk about challenges or successes, or maybe any sort of externalities that are going on in their personal life, you will see success with your VISTA. Okay, and best practices for supervision. Please, please, please expect to spend 5 to 10% per week of your time on your VISTA. Help them assimilate into community and work environment. Take them around your office, introduce them to all of your staff. If you have any sort of network that you work with a lot and that they're going to have to do some work with, please introduce them early on. Please do not expect them to just know who you're talking about. If you want to show them around your town, please do that. You know, like I said, they've picked up their lives, they've moved to a new area. It's hard to make new friends and to really find a sense of place. So if you have the time or the desire, please do that with them. Remember that your VISTA member may require professional guidance. Like I said, they're green to the workforce. They might be right out of college, and this is their full-time job. Treat members as staff. Your VISTA is not a volunteer, and your VISTA is not an intern. If you hear that other staff are treating them as such, please advocate for them, because sometimes it's hard for VISTAs to kind of put themselves out there and say, you know, please consider me as staff. But please do that. Treat members as staff. If you're inviting all of your staff to something, please invite them too, even if their project may not be related to what you're meeting about, but it could help them feel more connected to your organization, or even understand their project better by just understanding the organization better. Also, the Corporation for National Community Service have really great resources out there for supervisors. So if you're interested in learning what your supervision style is, follow that link and it will, I think, take you through a quiz, and you can kind of see what your supervision style is, so you can better understand maybe how your supervision style will mesh well with your VISTA's work style. And then you can find really great resources on the VISTA campus. Excuse me. And I encourage you all to visit the VISTA campus. There is a plethora of resources out there. If I even use VISTA campus in terms of the member handbook and the supervisor manual, and these things apply to everyone involved in VISTA. Also, there are webinars that are completely free. I know some of you have received some email saying, like, register for this webinar. If you create an account on VISTA campus, it'll send you resources or reminders that webinars are taking place, and they are very helpful. So there's one that I wanted to point out was the on-site orientation and training and the supervisor Q&A. You can register on VISTA campus, and they provide these webinars throughout the year. Okay, so I wanted to do a short little Q&A of how will you orient your VISTA to your community, your organization, and your project. I'd love to hear from all of you if you would care to share about what your plans are to help orient your VISTA within their first week to 3 weeks.
This is Morgan Slemberger with the University of Montana's Blackstone Launchpad and Accelerate Montana. We are fortunate to have had many vistas for various programs that we've done, but a tool that we've learned recently that's been really helpful because we work so frequently with many partners in the community and on campus is setting up individual meetings for vistas. So that is something that our incoming vista will be doing, is having half an hour meetups with several of our community partners, and it's a really great way for them to understand the community, the ecosystem that we're working within, and also have a face to the name of many emails that they'll be sending. So that's been really successful for us.
Great. Thanks, Morgan. That's a great idea. Caroline says, I was hoping to bring her to a board meeting on Monday at 4:30 to meet our wonderful board members. That is a great idea, to introduce them to different stakeholders throughout your organization. And Hillary, did you want to share anything? I'm sorry, Hillary, I can't hear you very well.
Yeah, I was worried about that.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know how to make it. Is this better at all? Or no?
It is a little bit better, yes.
Okay. I was trying to type it, but I can just describe it to you. I wanted to take Jensen around and help him meet all of the stakeholders in the law building and clinic program on during the week next week. And then I'm also going to try and set a meeting with our community partner, the Montana Supreme Court Pro Bono Program Coordinator, Patty Fane, and just talk through what she does, and particularly her work in collaboration with the Veterans Advocacy Clinic. And then the other community partner that I think Jensen needs to be exposed to is the Missoula Vet Center. And so I'm going to just take him over there and have him meet Megan, the director, and help him see kind of where we do our work when it's not at the law building. And I think that's it. The other thing I was going to do, but I just wanted to ask you actually while we're on this topic is it appropriate for me to, after I've reviewed and confirmed the VAD, share that like with my co-director of the clinic and Patty?
Yes, absolutely. If you want to share that with other people that will be working with your VISTA member, definitely, to help them understand exactly what their your VISTA's goals and objectives and how to follow that. Absolutely, because that is, your VISTA does need to stay within those parameters of that VAD. So I think if there's other folks that will be working with your VISTA member, please share that out so they'll have a better understanding of exactly what the VISTA is there for.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, and then Claire says we'll be bringing her to our staff meeting and orienting her to our programs by bringing her into classes. Claire, I think that is a great idea. Perfect. So it sounds like y'all have great plans to orient your VISTAs next week. That makes me very excited. So we'll move on. I'm getting close to the end of this webinar, so hold tight with me. But something I wanted to touch on was highlights and acknowledgments of national service. Please, if you take any photos or if you're on social media, you have newsletters, press releases, blogs, anything that you help to kind of promote your projects and your organization, feel free to include your VISTA in that. Share great stories and photos of your VISTA member and share it with us so then we can share it to AmeriCorps and the corporation. They love to see photos and stories of VISTAs getting things done so then they can share it to Congress and to the president and whoever else that helps give funding to national service. By seeing these good stories hearing about the great things that members are doing, we can keep national service going. So please let us know. And we do follow a lot of our host sites on social media. So if you highlight your member or something great that your VISTA is doing on your social media, just know that we will be sharing it. So, okay, moving on. Timeline. So the first few weeks of service. Your VISTA's first day at your site is August 19th. Is there a hashtag you use for social media? Claire, I think we've tried to use a few, but it's always forever changing and whatnot. But I think on Instagram we have used like, you know what, I'll have to look it up because I think we've used like Vista Nation before and then a couple others, but I can definitely let you know about what our hashtag should be and can be. Anyways, so your VISTA's first day at your site is this Monday, August 19th, 2019. And I will be hosting a webinar from 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. with your VISTA to help orient them for their first 2 weeks of service before we see them on September 3rd. So keep that in mind that your VISTA will have to attend that webinar. And then there's a second webinar that starts at 1 p.m., which is put on by VISTA. And this webinar is so important because your VISTA does their swearing in at that time. And if your VISTA is not on that webinar at that time to do the swearing in, they will technically not be in service. So unless they take that swearing in and that oath, they are not in service. So it is absolutely mandatory that they be there for that one. On-site orientation, that OSOT, is going to take place for their first 3 weeks of service. So it's going to be August 19th through September 3rd. And why does that seem? It's actually longer than that, sorry. But the first 3 weeks of their service. And then the pre-service orientation, which is in person, is going to take place September 3rd through the 5th. And so they are required to come to that orientation, and we'll cover a lot of things that pertain to their service, as well as helping them get oriented to Montana in general. And then, like I said earlier, I will be doing in-person check-ins, but then there are program manager, site supervisor check-in calls, which are going to take place in the beginning of September into the midweek of September to see exactly how things are going, to kind of check up with you to see if you have any questions, if there's anything going on that we need to address. And that will just be short phone call check-ins with me. And then your VISTA's first monthly webinar call will take place on September 19th at 10 a.m. So that is those monthly solidarity calls that happen the third Thursday of every month. So know that your VISTA will be unavailable for an hour the third Thursday of every month from 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. So Hillary asks, is the pre-service orientation something we attend as well? Hillary, it is taking place here on campus, and since you are on campus, yes, absolutely, you can attend the pre-service orientation. And that goes for everyone involved. If any host site supervisor would like to attend the orientation, please let me know, and I will make sure to account you for food and whatnot. And I will send out an agenda as well. Okay, so one last reminder. Are there other orientation meetings we need to attend? No, the trainings that we do throughout the year are mainly just for members, but if it is something that you think would be beneficial to you to attend, please let us know and we can work out travel. We do not have funds to really pay for supervisors to attend. We usually just budget for our members to attend these trainings, but I can definitely send out some information and agendas, and if it's something that you would like to attend, please let me know. So as my last reminder is I-9s. Because your member is not coming to a training on their first day of service, I need supervisors to complete the I-9 with their member on their first day of service. So that's going to be on Monday. And Kathy Peters, our office manager, has sent out emails to each of you with directions on how to fill out the I-9 and also to review the citizenship documents that your member has. So I went ahead and I put a sample I-9 on this slide. And you'll want to make sure that you pay attention to List A, List B, and List C on the I-9. And the ones that we are sending you, please do not download an I-9 from the internet. We are sending you one specific to our office. So where it says highlighted, it'll just need to be your signature, the date, which will be August 19th, the last name of the employer or the authorized representative, which will be you, and then the first name, and then the rest of it will be filled out. And I'm sure most of you have filled out an I-9, but it must be completed and submitted on your member's first day of service. Citizenship documents must be the original. So if your member submitted a driver's license and a social security card to us, they will need to have their driver's license and their social security card, the originals, in front of you for you to verify as the originals. And then under signature of employer or authorized representative, please sign your name. We also will be sending you a link to a secure website called Submittable, where you will then upload that I-9 form to us. I believe Morgan and Hillary, you are on campus, so you could also send over your member to our office and we can complete this if you are close enough to us, and we can verify that it is done correctly. So please let me know if any of you have any questions, but it is important that this is done on the very first day of service. I cannot say that enough. Do we need to scan citizenship docs, or do you have those? So Claire, we have the citizenship documents that they submitted to us, but we need you to verify that they are the originals before signing that document. Hillary says, what location on campus should I send him to? Hillary, we are located in the basement of the Davidson's Honor College. So we are right on the Oval, and you can send him over to us and we can complete it with him.
Callie?
Yes.
This is Morgan. Maybe I'm just totally forgetting this, but I don't remember doing this the past few years, and it could be that Paul did it. But I'm curious, do you need us to do anything, or you're signing off in the I-9s? Like, what is our role other than me sending Hillary to your office? What do you?
Since you're on campus, Morgan, just go ahead and send her over here with her original citizenship documents.
Got it. Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll take care of it. But for Claire, you'll need to do this in person, and this has changed this year because usually with pre-service orientation, it takes place on their first day of service, but because of budget cuts within our programming, we had to combine two pre-service orientations, and it didn't make sense to have it be on August 19th. So because we usually do pre-service orientation, this is something we take care of on their first day of service when they are with us, but because they will be with you on their first day of service, it then becomes your responsibility to complete this form and send it to us. But you can always, if you're on campus, just send them over to us. Caroline also said, how does your VISTA get paid? Do you pay them, or do we? So your VISTA is technically a staff member of the University of Montana, because the way our funding works is that our funding comes in. There is an account here with the University of Montana that we pull from. And so all of their paychecks will be issued by the University of Montana. So please do not pay them, do not give them cash or a check. Their paycheck will come from us, either in the form of a paper check or direct deposit. It depends on what they've set up with our office manager, Kathy Peters. Caroline, does that answer your question? Yep, so we will bill you for your amount due. So within your application, you were supposed to fill out a form that says how you would like to be billed, whether that be in full or quarterly. So excuse me, that should have been worked out with our office manager, Kathy Peters, but yes, you will receive an invoice from us depending on how you set up that billing with us, whether it's quarterly or in full at one time. Okay, great. Seems like I answered that well. So it seemed like all of you had questions throughout, which was great, but I just wanted to say that we're here to help. And I also wanted to say that if you run into any sort of issues with your VISTA, please, please, please include us in the very beginning, because we don't want anything to happen for a long period of time and then we're looped in a little too late when your VISTA is considering leaving or you're having intense issues. Not saying that this is going to happen with your VISTA, but we just want to make sure that we are involved if there's any challenges that arise. So please do not wait to contact us if you have any questions, concerns, or challenges with your VISTA. I've put my contact information here, but most of you should already have it. Again, my name is Callie Foster, and I am the VISTA Program Manager here. The area code on that number is 406, and that is my office email for Montana Campus Compact. So now's the time if you have any more questions. Callie, you are emailing us the VAD and other docs. Yes, Hillary, I will email you the VAD. I will email you the OSAT, which is the on-site orientation training, the program calendar, the VAD, OSAT, and I will also, since I recorded this webinar, I will also be uploading it to YouTube, and then I will send you the link to YouTube so you can watch it again if you need to. And I will also be sending a link to the VISTA campus, which would be a really great resource if you want to create an account. It has a lot of great information for members as well as host site supervisors. All right. You're welcome, Hillary. So with that, I will leave you. And please feel free to email me if you have any other questions, or if you have any questions on the first day of service, please feel free to contact me. I am here to help. And if I do not have the answer to any of your questions, believe me, I will exhaust all of my resources to find those answers so we can make sure that this service term is as successful as we can make it. So thank you everyone for coming, and please look for that recap email from me shortly. Okay, bye everyone.